Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. Goldbelly ships Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garden's famous cakes. So, if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's goldbelly.com, promo code GIFT.
Hey listeners, this is Peter, and welcome back to the History Shorts podcast. This humble show is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the globe, yours truly included, and all in one place. Download Podcast Republic now, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. Today's story takes us to the final desperate chapter of Fascist Italy, a regime that was already collapsing under the weight of war and betrayal. It's the story of a puppet state born out of chaos, led by a dictator who refused to believe that his time was actually over. This is the rise and fall of the Italian Social Republic, better known as the Republic of Salo.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Today in history. On December 7th, 1941, at 7:48 a.m. Hawaiian time, the world changed in a single morning. Japanese aircraft swept over Pearl Harbor in a surprise attack that destroyed battleships, sank cruisers, and killed more than 2,400 Americans. For the United States, the illusion of remaining on the sidelines of World War II vanished instantly. And within 24 hours, Congress declared war on Japan with only one dissenting vote, and the nation plunged headfirst into the most global conflict in human history. But the story of December 7th doesn't end with 1941. Because on December 7th, 1972, something remarkable happened far above the Earth. Apollo 17, the final mission of the Apollo program, launched toward the moon. On board were Commander Gene Cernan, Harrison Schmitt, and Ron Evans, the last humans ever to travel beyond low Earth orbit. The mission would leave behind the famous blue marble photograph, that iconic image of our planet floating alone in space, a symbol of unity, fragility, and perspective. Story of the day. By the summer of 1943, Benito Mussolini's fascist dreams were unraveling. Italy's armies were retreating across Africa, Sicily had fallen to the Allies, and ordinary Italians were losing faith in the leader who had once promised them glory. On July 25, 1943, the Grand Council of Fascism turned against him. King Victor Emmanuel III ordered Mussolini's arrest. Just like that, after 21 years in power, the man who had built a totalitarian empire was driven off in an ambulance, a prisoner of his own nation. For a moment, it seemed the fascist era was over. Marshal Pietro Badoglio took power and quickly began negotiating Italy's surrender to the Allies. But Adolf Hitler had other plans. To him, Mussolini was still too valuable to lose, both as an ally and as a symbol of fascism. So on September 12, 1943, German commandos led by Otto Skorzeny executed one of the most daring rescue missions of the war, Operation Oak. They located Mussolini at a remote mountaintop hotel where he was being held under heavy guard. In a swift glider assault, the Germans stormed the site, freed Mussolini without firing a shot, and then flew him out by small aircraft. Within days, Hitler had installed his old friend back in power, though now it was on Nazi terms. Mussolini was brought to the lakeside town of Salo on Lake Garda in northern Italy, and he was then told that he would head a new government, kind of like Vichy France, but in Italy, the Italian Social Republic. But make no mistake, it was not truly Italian. The Republic of Salò, officially proclaimed in September of 1943, was nothing more than a German puppet regime, a thin veil of Italian nationalism covering the reality of Nazi occupation. While Mussolini remained its head of state, real power rested with the German military and the SS officers who had controlled northern Italy. The fascist leader who had once dominated Europe was now reduced to reading Hitler's scripts. Still, Mussolini tried to present the regime as a return to the revolutionary spirit of early fascism. He denounced the monarchy that had betrayed him, promised to redistribute land and wealth, and then called for a new social republic, based on worker participation. On paper, it sounded radical. It was almost socialist, actually. But in practice, it was chaos. Factories were destroyed, the economy had collapsed, and much of the population viewed Mussolini's government with fear and contempt. The Republic's ministers operated from scattered villas and hotels around Lake Garda. Even Mussolini himself rarely left his guarded compound. Physically weak, increasingly paranoid, and painfully aware that his influence was slipping away. Meanwhile, Italy had become a nation at war with itself. To the south, the Allies and the newly formed Italian co-belligerent army advanced slowly up the peninsula. To the north, the Salo regime, supported by German troops, fought to maintain control. Partisan resistance movements grew rapidly. There were not small, disorganized bands, but actually nationwide networks of Italians now fighting to liberate their country from fascism and occupation. They carried out sabotage, assassinations, and uprisings against both German forces and the Salo government. The response was brutal. Salo's police, often working alongside the Gestapo, rounded up suspected partisans, Jews and descendants. Summary executions became common. One of the regime's darkest acts was its participation in the deportation of Italy's Jewish population, a policy that Mussolini had once restricted but now carried out under Nazi pressure. By 1944, the Italian Social Republic had become synonymous not with nationalism, but with terror. It's worth remembering how small and fragile this republic really was. It controlled only northern and central Italy, and even there, German occupation forces ran the show. The regime's capital was never officially fixed, but its administrative offices clustered around Salo, a small town on Lake Garda with a population, I should mention, of only a few thousand. From there, Mussolini and his ministers really tried to maintain the illusion of sovereignty, issuing decrees and speeches while the Wehrmacht and the SS decided the country's fate. Mussolini's speeches from Salo grew bitter and despairing. He lashed out at the monarchy, blamed betrayal for Italy's downfall, and then promised an impossible revival. Yet privately, he knew it was all over. El Duce, who once filled piazzas with roaring crowds, now spoke to small gatherings of weary bureaucrats, his once booming voice reduced to a whisper. By early 1945, Allied forces had reached the Po Valley, and the German army was in retreat. Partisan uprisings spread through northern cities, Milan, Turin, and Genoa, and German control began to collapse. Mussolini decided to flee. On April 25th, he and his mistress, Clara Petacci, disguised themselves and joined a German convoy heading north toward the Swiss border. But 2 days later, they were recognized and captured by Italian partisans near the village of Dongo. On April 28, 1945, Benito Mussolini was executed by firing squad. His body, along with Petacci's and several ministers of the Salo regime, was then hung upside down in the Milan square, a grim public display meant to mark the end of fascism in Italy. 2 days later, Hitler took his own life in Berlin. The war in Europe would end within a week. The Italian Social Republic lasted barely 18 months, from September 1943 to April 1945, but its legacy remains dark and complex. For Italy, it was not just a puppet state, it was a second civil war, a time when Italians fought and killed one another in the name of ideology, vengeance, and survival. For Mussolini, Salo was a tragic epilogue, a final act of stubborn pride, played out on a shrinking stage. And for historians, the Republic of Salò stands as a stark reminder of how authoritarian regimes rarely die cleanly. They kind of linger in fear, denial, and blood, long after their power is gone. for the good of the order. I want to end today by mentioning a movie I stumbled on this week, one I had somehow never seen before, even though it came out more than 80 years ago. It's a 1942 Humphrey Bogart film called All Through the Night. It is now streaming on Hulu, courtesy of TCL. It's no Casablanca, that's for sure, but I did enjoy it, and I would highly recommend it. If you've never seen it, the film is a strange, energetic mix of comedy, noir, and wartime drama. Bogart plays a New York gambler who stumbles onto a Nazi spy ring operating in the city. That alone kind of tells you the movie comes from a very specific moment, one where Hollywood was still figuring out how to talk about the war that America was on the brink of entering. And that's what kind of struck me here. Because All Through the Night was released in January of 1942, barely a month after Pearl Harbor. This very episode you're listening to right now comes out on its anniversary. That means that it was written, filmed, and edited, and completed before Americans had officially joined the war. So you're watching a movie where ordinary New Yorkers, there's cab drivers, waiters, gamblers, and small-time crooks, suddenly discover fascism is hiding in the shadows of their own city. And instead of panicking, they band together. They improvise and they fight back. It's funny, chaotic, actually a little absurd, but it's also a snapshot of a country trying to understand what was coming. And the more I watched the movie, the more I realized that's why the movie holds up. It's not really about espionage or Nazi plots at all. It's about how regular people react when the world they know suddenly shifts beneath their feet. Check it out when you get a chance, and let me know in the comments section what you thought, and what you think about these new segments I've been incorporating to these daily episodes. You can always email me at peter@historyshortspodcast.com. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.